wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature. One must certainly withdraw and bring it back under the control of the self. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady. An unsteady nature. One must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind, and therefore the senses as well, is called Swami, Goswami, or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called Godasa, or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness and transcendental sense happiness. The senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesha, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Okay, now we're going to go to text 27, my dear devotees. And it says, Prashanta manasam hi enam, yoginam sukham uttamam, upaiti santa rajasam, brahmabhutam akalmasam. And very nice poetic verse. And this verse says, the yogi whose mind is fixed on me, meaning Krishna, verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reaction to past deeds. Very nice statement. Purport. Brahmabhuta is the state of being free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. Mad Bhaktin Labdhate Param. Bhagavad Gita 18:54. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. To be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Krishna consciousness, is to be factually liberated from the mode of passion and all material contamination. Text 28. Yunjan evam sadat manam yogi vigata kalmasa sukena brahma samsparsam atyantam sukham asnute. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Wow, that's a nice one. To read that again. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes freed from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship to the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the Supreme is called Rama Samsparsa. Text 29. Sarvabhutastam Atmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Iksate Yoga Yukta Atma Sarvatra Samadarsanam. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
That's a very profound statement. When we develop that ability to see the Lord everywhere, that means we are fully Krishna conscious. And in the purport, it says, a Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the Supreme, situated in everyone's heart as super soul or Paramatma. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hdesevijuna Tishtati. The Lord, in his Paramatma feature, is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahman. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahman. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the super soul. One who is not factually in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. A Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and the non-believer. In the heart and the non-believer. In the Smriti, this is confirmed as follows. Atat atvacha mat ritvacha atma hi paramo hari. The Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the super soul is always in every living being. Outwardly, also, every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord, as will be explained in the 7th chapter. The Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual or superior, and the material or inferior. The living entity also, the living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations, according to the results of fruited work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. While in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses. And while in the spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness. Text number 30. Yamam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mai pashyati. Tasyaham na pranasyami, sachamena pranasyati. For one who sees me, meaning Krishna, everywhere, and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Purport by his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instance, he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Let me read that one more time. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to material liberation. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the personality Godhead ever out of the sight of the devotee. To merge in Krishna is spiritual annihilation. A devotee takes no such risk. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita 538. Pramanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santat sadaiva hidayesu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunasvarupam govindam adi purisham tamaham vijami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee, whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Shyam Sundara, situated within the heart of the devotee. At this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. Okay, very nice.
Very ball.
Purport. Text 31. Sarva bhuta stitam yomam bhajati ekatvam astita sarvata vartamanopi sa yogi mayi vartate. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supreme Soul, knowing that I and the Super Soul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A yogi who is practicing meditation on the supersoul sees within himself the plenary portion of Krishna as Vishnu with four hands, holding conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogi should know that Vishnu is not different from Krishna. Krishna in his form of supersoul is situated in everyone's heart. Furthermore, there is no difference between the innumerable supersouls present in the innumerable hearts of living entities, nor is there a difference between a Krishna conscious person, always engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, and the perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the supersoul. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in material existence, remains always situated in Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.187 of Sri Rupa Goswami. Nikilas Swapi Avastasu Jivan Mukta Sauchyate. A devotee of the Lord, always acting in Krishna consciousness, is automatically liberated. In the Narada Pancharatra, this is confirmed in this way. The Kaladi Anabachine Krishna Cheta Vidayacha Tanmayo Bhavati Shipram Jivo Ramani Yojayet. By concentrating one's attention on the transcendental form of Krishna, who is all-pervading and beyond time and space, one becomes absorbed in thinking of Krishna and then attains the happy state of transcendental association with him. Krishna consciousness is the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. This very understanding that Krishna is present as Paramatma in everyone's heart makes the yogi faultless. The Vedas, Gopala-tapani Upanishad 1.21, confirm this inconceivable potency of the Lord as follows. Ekopi san bahuda yo vabhati. Although the Lord is one, he is present in innumerable hearts as many. Similarly, in the Smriti Shastra, it is said, Eka eva paro Vishnu, sarva vyapi cha samsaya, aishvaryat rupam ekam cha, suryavat bahu deyate. Vishnu is one, and yet he is certainly all-pervading. By his inconceivable potency, in spite of his one form, he is present everywhere, as the sun appears in many places at once. Now, that's why it's impossible for anyone to be equal to or greater than Krishna. We should take this to heart, because if we're not sure about that, then we remain an atheist. But if we are absolutely convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead, no one is equal to him, no one is greater than him, everyone is subordinate to him. And as it says here, Eka eva paro Vishnu sarva vyapi nasamsaya aishvaryat rupam ekam cha suryavat bahu deyate. Vishnu is one, and yet he is certainly all-pervading. By his inconceivable potency, in spite of his one form, he is present everywhere, as the sun appears in many places at once. These are things that we have to accept a priori. In other words, we can't, let's say, validate them with our imperfect senses. Therefore, we should accept the bona fide statements of pure devotees. There's no way you can experiment these things. For example, Vishnu is one, and yet he is certainly all-pervading. How are you going to prove that? There's no way that you can experience that. You have to accept it as the truth. Also, it says, by his inconceivable potency, that's the whole point. It's inconceivable. In spite of his one form, he is present everywhere as the sun appears in many places at once. Mm. So we have to accept certain things that are beyond our ability to perceive ourselves. And that means that we actually have faith. But if we're always doubting and want everything to be proven without the doubts, well, that's going to be very difficult. There are some things that cannot be proven because of our limited intelligence. Therefore, we should accept the statements of bona fide devotees. Okay, so Atmo Pam Yena Sarvatra Samam Pasyati Yo Regina Sukham Va Yadiva Dukam Sayogi Paramo Mata. And this verse says, 1 second. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings. And see, I like this verse very much. This is a very nice verse. Let me read that again. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world. And he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Na chatasman manusyesu kaschin me priyakritama. Srimad Bhagavad Gita 18.69. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities. And in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi, who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly, may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man toward Krishna consciousness. Now, that is very, very important, let's say, differentiation between a yogi and a Krishna conscious person. The yogi is endeavoring to liberate himself, whereas the devotee is working in every way possible to help many other people become liberated. And how do we know that? Because yogis normally meditate in solitude and avoid large groups of people. They have to find a very safe, solitary place, and they sit down on the kusha grass and they begin to meditate. Whereas a devotee, he'll go out, perform sankirtan, preach in public, and in every way try to help others become Krishna conscious. So there is a certain type of exclusiveness of the yogi and the open-hearted welfare desire of the devotee. What did you say?
A devotee is always looking for helping everybody.
Yes.
He's not self-centered.
Exactly right. And therefore it says here, he is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man toward Krishna consciousness. Wow, beautiful statement by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You see, you have to understand, Prabhupada is basically explaining who he is here. He did not seek to be liberated simply for himself, but he tried to give everybody a chance to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, to become genuinely Krishna conscious. And he basically engaged in sacrificing his happiness or family, taking refuge in his family and so forth. He sacrificed everything to spread this movement.
He sacrificed living in Vrindavan.
He went.
He sacrificed living in Vrindavan.
Not living in Vrindavan.
Not living in.
Yeah. Of course, he went back, but he could have stayed there and lived very nice and peaceful, not have any problems. But he went to the worst place in the world, the Lower East Side of New York, in the Bowery, and started preaching there.
It's an extreme contrast of
Yeah.
in Vrindavan, wherever you are, you're always in Krishna consciousness.
Well,
Pretty much.
He was a pure devotee, yeah.
Yes. I mean, of course, wherever Prabhupada is there, that is Vrindavan.
Well, he can make any place Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, in the beginning, he had problems because at first he didn't have any devotees in the United States. And he was staying with one person that tried to kill him with a knife. And he had to run away. And he was not making much, progress for about 6 months or more, but he didn't give up.
Very good.
Yeah. So we have to see that we're going to be tested. Everyone is going to be tested. And Prabhupada had a severe test, and then he had severe test. He had 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta. And he thought that if he had a third one, he would certainly die. So, and that's before he even reached the United States. So you see, he went through a lot of, let's say, tests or a lot of very difficult situations to, be able to preach Krishna consciousness. Can you imagine? He's on a boat with no doctor.
Harivilas.
And he has 2 heart attacks.
But
And he thought that if he had a third heart attack, he would definitely die. Unbelievable. And then after that, when he comes to the United States, then for 11 years, he circled the world 14 times to spread Krishna consciousness. That's with a weak heart, right? So you can see.
With no medical intervention.
He didn't want to go to a hospital. He told the devotees, don't take me to the hospital. They took him once or twice, and then after that he said, I don't want to go to a hospital. Right? So, yeah, he was very, very, let's say, determined to spread Krishna consciousness, even though he's in an advanced age, and even though he had very bad health. Right? He had diabetes also. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Diabetes, heart attack, heart problem.
Yeah.
11 times.
11 times what?
14 times.
14 times he traveled within 11
Around the
years.
world, yeah.
With these problems.
And I get wiped out flying to India. It takes me 3 weeks to come back to normal.
Krishna.
Every time I fly to India, it's the going is okay. Coming back, it takes me 3 weeks to a month to adjust again. Yeah. But Prabhupada, actually Prabhupada at one point stopped going at one time from India to the United States, so he would stop off. He wouldn't take flights longer than maybe 5 hours.
And he would stop in between, visit that place and again.
Yeah, because you had devotees in different places. Good, because there's airplane flights. It takes you 24 hours or 30 hours. It completely devastates you. But if you take shorter flights, you go, maybe maximum like 4 hours. It's not so bad, and then some resting in between. It's not so bad. But if you just take that long flight, it's devastating. Okay, so I think our time is over.
Yes.
So thank you very much. Our takeaway today is Nachitasman Manusyesu Kaschin Me Priya Pritama, Bhagavad Gita 1869. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities. And in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man toward Krishna consciousness. That is a wonderful statement. That's the type of statement that we should put on the wall and look at it regularly every day. You know. Okay, any questions anyone has?
Hare Krishna. Any questions online? These are the same verses Mayavadis completely get confused, right? Like where see me everywhere, see all the living entities in me, and see, because those verses where Krishna is saying, like, one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, he's seeing, then they equate everything as one.
Oh, that's, oh yeah, everything is one. But our philosophy is Achintya Veda Aveda Tattva. Achintya means inconceivable, simultaneous, oneness, and difference. That is Lord Chaitanya's philosophy. And that just confuses the Mayavadis. They can't deal with that. They can understand oneness. They can understand duality, but they can't understand simultaneous oneness and difference. In fact, everywhere in nature, there's simultaneous oneness and difference. There's so many examples of that. Just like there's people think that okay, now we have a political party and everyone is one in their convictions in that political party. But at the same time, they're one, but they have different, let's say, approaches. So that oneness and difference is there everywhere in all situations.
Correct.
Of life. It's like a husband and wife. They're one in a sense, but still they each have their own personality. So they might both agree of things. So that's oneness. But then they might have their own hobbies. So that's difference. So this oneness and difference exists on all levels of life.
Correct. Family level, society, any kind of unit in which there is multiple people, multiple entities involved. There's oneness, there's one common thread on which they all operate on, but at the same time, each person has a slight variation of the actual understanding.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so should we get ready for our yes, it's the Kirtan Harinam ecstasy.
Harivilas.
We have some of the artists, the Mridanga artists and instrumental artists that are on the call, so we need them to come to the temple.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock.
Okay, let me get ready.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
I'm just
Krishna,
gonna go
Hare
like this.
Hare Ram,
Very
Hare Ram,
comfortable.
Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, we'll see you all at the temple. Hare Krishna.